Hi, welcome back. Once again, I'm Maribel Lopez. Thank you for getting back on time. I'm actually really excited to hear this next presentation from Sakid Ahmed. He is the GM of Cambium Networks. And the topic of the conversation is quality of experience in the wireless network. And I know that we have been constantly working on this topic since the dawn of the wireless time, so to speak. It is still just as important today as it was when we first started. The good news is that we're getting a lot better at it. And so, without further ado, let's turn it over to Sakid.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. This is Sakid Ahmed from Cambium Networks. A big pleasure here to have everyone join us. You have been hearing a lot of exciting things about 5G, millimeter wave, and the technology that is in the very near future that's going to open up boundless opportunities. My session today, we're going to dig a little deeper to something close to my heart and something we're monitoring in the industry and looking to participate in. And it has to do with the concept of QoE, quality of experience. To cover a little bit about what is QoE, and then talk a little bit about what we can do to ensure quality of experience in the applications that you're providing through the broadband connection. Needless to say, this applies to everybody, whether you're MSP or a wireless service provider or a wireline service provider. A QoE is what matters to your customers. So this is why I wanted to talk about QoE today. Before we move any further, I did want to talk a little bit about something close to my heart and an interesting experience. And this will feel like we're deviating quite a bit from the topic, but there is a rhinoceros conservation project in South Africa that I had the luxury and the fortune to visit. And in that preservation, what you see in the bottom left-hand picture are EPMP radios backhauling thermal cameras. Quite fascinating because the whole idea behind this is to handle and catch poaching in action and react to that, and with the whole goal of preserving the rhino population at this location. As I went through this later on, somebody shared a video with me about an encounter that I thought was a cool video to watch. And I was getting excited to watch this video, and just like everyone else, right at the exciting moment, my video started buffering. As you can clearly see, my presentation about the rhino had really nothing to do with the actual rhino preservation, but more about showing you what quality of experience really means. The buffering of this video at a critical juncture is what we don't want our customers to face in their homes. And this sort of summarizes, in a nutshell, what quality of experience is all about. And with that, I'll go and talk a little bit more. It is about buffering during video streaming. It's about slow, hiccupy browsing experience, lost or choppy video or audio during a phone call, or something that is really disturbing is high latency during online gaming, which ends up resulting in somebody not being able to join a cloud game service, or for that matter, having poor performance during an online game. So these are the things that encompass the concept of the quality of experience. And it is very important in our industry. And we spend a lot of time talking about QoS. We spend a lot of time talking about throughput and bandwidth and selling packages. But what really matters is customer satisfaction. And customer satisfaction comes via the positive experience that they have in their homes. Speaking of QoS versus quality of experience, I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about this. So really, QoE focuses on user experience. Uh, Achieving QoE is about making sure that application-sensitive parameters are optimized. I'll delve a little bit into this a little later, but really it's about, are there things that a particular application cares about that you should focus on tuning, tweaking, and optimizing? with the end result being customer satisfaction, which translates to better business, customer loyalty, retention, all the factors that make your business successful, because customer is king in this case. QoS, on the flip side, is really about the granular level of packet prioritization, packet optimization, right? You're classifying, and yes, to some extent, you're prioritizing the packets. Some would argue that bandwidth control via maximum information rate, committed information rate, those are also things that contribute towards a QoS experience. The QoS today doesn't really go down to the layer 7 type deep packet inspection and really integrate into what I would consider the edge network. And edge in this case for me is the wireless access point. Given that we are talking primarily about the wireless experience, QoE becomes even more important. And I'll talk a little bit about this down the road, but retransmissions, interference, and how those things impact applications really trigger that negative QoE experience. And QoS gets to a certain point, but it doesn't necessarily give you the granularity, the insight, and the tips and tools to tweak the application experience. This image where you see the water faucet with the different applications is really a attempt on my side to convey to you that at the end of the day, increasing, decreasing bandwidth is just one element of providing QoE. If somebody says, I've got X number of Netflix video streams in my house happening in parallel, of course, you want to give them the better package, 100 megabit plan, so they can run their 4K TVs in parallel. But a lot of times that is not enough, because that experience could easily be impacted with a PS4 gaming upload in the background. So while the faucet and controlling the pipe is one aspect of this, really the insight that each application gives you and parameters that can help you with video conferencing, YouTube, those are what makes the QoE experience significantly better. So I hope that kind of comes across, and while the difference may seem subtle between QoS and QoE, I still want to highlight QoE is relatively subjective, but it is an important parameter, and it really does boil down to application-specific optimization. If you look a little bit at where we are in terms of the world around us, I mean, we are inundated by applications, right? Whether it's Google Home or Alexa devices used to control the light switch and whatnot, or massive game updates that your family members, your kids might be doing, or joining these multitude of online gaming services. The advent of higher resolution TVs, with a lot of activities happening on the CRM and the cloud, your iCloud backup, all of these are examples. In some cases, a file upload backup could withstand packet loss, not a big issue. But on the flip side, that packet loss could really cause issues in throughput degrading significantly on a critical download that you're waiting for. Latency impact. We talked about gaming, but for that matter, smart home devices inside your house with Wi-Fi, that latency can impact the time it takes for you to say, Alexa, turn off the light switch, versus when the light switch is actually turned off. So this is why our thinking has to evolve more towards application performance, tweaking that, and focusing on the end user experience, and less about the packages and the throughput numbers that we sell. So if you look at where I want to talk about a little bit in the next slide, is an example of selling internet packages today. You can go and sell the 50 megabit package, 100 megabit package, etc. But there is an opportunity to change the conversation a little bit. Instead of selling that 50, 100 megabit packages, in this case, you see that There's additional information about how it's ideal for streaming TV entertainment, ideal for working from home, and how that translates. So when a user comes to you and says, well, such and such provider is giving me a 100 megabit plan, the argument or the marketing you can do is, well, my plan will cater to three simultaneous Netflix users while somebody's gaming and somebody's working from home. So there's an opportunity here, which some of you are already well ahead, I'm sure. But the purpose for me to bring this up is that the speeds and feed or the competition on throughput packages is just one way to win the business of the customer. But the other way is to talk to them about their actual needs. And if you ensure that those needs are met, then you may not be competing just pure on throughput, but rather on services. And that will retain that customer and bring customer loyalty. With that, what can we do today? Um, some insight that I wanted to share, and this gets a little bit more on the technical side, and I'm sure there are other examples. But first and foremost, you as an operator, independent of what you do, whether you're offering managed services or wireless internet or cabled internet, your goal is to know the customer issue before that customer makes that phone call. That is a invaluable tool to be preemptive about what you have to do. It reduces your customer calls and you're able to tackle situations better before issues are escalated. Monitoring your network is the absolute first step towards this. I know many people do so. They're using SNMP, CN Maestro, and other tools, but we provide a pretty comprehensive and powerful tool in CN Maestro. So first and foremost, regularly monitoring network becomes a key foundation to developing this experience. Look at things in wireless around, and I speak specifically to fixed wireless broadband, the outdoor stuff. Obviously, in Wi-Fi, once you go inside the house, things change dramatically. But retransmissions, when there's interference, packets are lost. What is the ratio of packets being retransmitted? It's a very, very key parameter because retransmission usually translates to higher latency, as well as signal levels. Are RSSI signal levels and consistent over time? Are there degradations happening because of a misalignment and things like that? So keeping an eye on some of these things. Along with retransmissions, you want to look at packet loss on the link. Packet loss is a bad thing. We try to address that with retransmissions, but if you have high packet loss, we all know TCP doesn't like high packet loss, and you're going to have a dramatic impact to your throughput. You want to keep an eye on these parameters because if you are able to proactively address these, you're already on your way to building a reliable network, which ultimately results in better experience for the end user. Having said that, this is today. Our desire at Cambium Networks is to give you the tools and insights in the near future that will help you achieve even better quality of experience for your customers. So as we look to the future, you're going to see things like DPI abilities in products that will give you insight into how much Netflix is really Netflix is consuming on your link. Is it 10 meg, 20 meg, 30 meg? How much is YouTube doing that? So this insight is the first step towards seeing, okay, what is happening with the application scenario? Because once you see Netflix happening and suddenly you see a massive spike in the game update for PS4 or the GeForce or Amazon Luna gaming service, you kind of start to say, well, my Netflix users are probably going to complain because there's a sudden uptick on the background download activity. So that's going to be a step one. Then step two becomes what we want to offer eventually is a prioritization. How do we control the access point, the scheduler, and things like that in relation to the application level? So now you're able to prioritize things like Netflix and deprioritize background file uploads to iCloud or your family picture sync up. And needless to say, you're able to do a little bit of this in your home router. There's a lot of opportunities there, but that's not what an average user does at their home. So you as an operator have that opportunity to tweak that, to implement those things and extend that quality of experience. As we move forward, you'll see more opportunities to impact things in terms of TCP behavior, latency, and a lot of this all comes together once again to achieve that important aspect of quality of experience. So that is the message I wanted to send. I hope everybody finds it useful. If you haven't thought about quality of experience, my goal is you should start thinking about it. If you haven't started monitoring your network, my goal is to tell you, please start doing so. And last but not least, keep an eye out for what we have to share in the future about this topic and the tools and we will offer as a vendor to help you achieve the quality of experience.
Thank you. And we are back. So quality of experience has been a hot topic, and we're going to talk a lot about that right now. But I wanted to let everybody know that Sakid could not be with us here today for Q&A. So standing in for him is Dmitry Moisev. At Cambium Networks, Dmitry leads the ePMP and CN Vision development efforts. He's got extensive experience in the wireless industry. He's had a chance to work in the satellite business where quality of experience played a huge role, particularly with increased latency and jitter that a satellite business would have. He's also managed a small rural service provider and dealt with customers' claims of low internet connection speed and choppy voice calls. So he's kind of been on the other side of that like choppy video that we were talking about. But as I have done in the past and will continue to do, I'd like to start this session with a polling question. And you'll see this pop up the screen. The question is, can a wireless network provider using unlicensed spectrum generally measure and control a customer experience? I think it's a great question to see how you guys feel about that. Okay, so while we are waiting for the poll, I want to just jump right in and start talking about some questions here. And, you know, I guess I'm going to start with something that I've been thinking about for a while now. And this concept of quality of experience isn't new. The concept of QoS isn't new. We've had that for a long time. I think we've, as we heard in the presentation, we're talking more about moving that from just to being about the mechanics to being about more of an experience and looking at it from the end user perspective. But what has really changed that's going to enable people to do that today? Because it's not a new thing that we're talking about, but what do you see as a change, Dmitry?
Right. So first and foremost, we're trying to, well, draw the wireless ISP community attention to the, to switch from the internet speed and latency and this type of mentality into the end user perspective, because sometimes it's not the speed that is causing the suffering of the customer. It's not always the latency. So the main thing that all the WISPs, all the operators, they have to start thinking from this perspective and monitor the experience instead of the just the internet speed. Because as you said, I used to work in the wireless ISP myself, and I've heard these complaints from the customers. And the number one thing wireless ISP would like to know ahead of time if somebody is suffering. So the monitoring tools like the CN Meister, for example, from Cambium, we are bringing all the monitoring tools to the customer. To our customer. And for the end customer monitoring, it can be a first step, maybe not sufficient to do the full featured quality of assurance, quality of experience monitoring, but it's a good step towards the end goal of the proper quality of experience.
That makes perfect sense. So from that, I'm actually really curious to see what the audience thinks about this whole quality experience thing. What's the poll results say? So there is a belief that we can achieve, in unlicensed spectrum, a quality of service. So that's great. Any surprises to you, Dimitri, on those results?
Well, not really surprised. We've seen, as soon as I'm working on the EPMP side of the Cambium business, we've seen amazing results with EPMP product line delivering voice over IP, like triple service with the video on demand, voice, and the internet, especially during these tough times in 2020, with the quality. Even on the busiest sectors and busiest systems. So that's definitely true. Yeah.
Now, I want to remind everybody that it's live Q&A, so make sure you ask your questions down the bottom. But while we're waiting for more questions to roll in, one of the things that I've been thinking about as well, and the team's been thinking about, is what's the role of oversubscription in quality of experience? And how do we think about monitoring and managing that? Because you mentioned that they have to monitor not just the bandwidth, but the QoE.
Right. In many cases, especially on the busy systems, on busy sectors, oversubscriptions kick in, because in many times wireless ISP, they don't estimate how many actual customers with specific data plans they can serve. So especially when they have competition with the fiber, even with the DSL operators, they tend to sell pretty high-speed data plans, like 50 megabit per second, 100 megabit per second, and it can easily oversubscribe the system, meaning that you can sell 10, 50, 30 subscribers per sector with those data plans, while you have only capacity of 300 megabits per sector. In this case, when everybody is trying to use those 100 megabit data plans, you will see lower quality of experience for some of them, especially who wants to download the new shiny video game, for example. And during some of the releases during the pandemic, we've seen it in the customer networks that it spiked the demand and the capacity, and leading to the lower experience for the rest of them. So what we can do, what we can monitor, one of the things that, well, with the wireless systems we have so-called airtime. It shows how much of the airtime the system is using. It applies to the EPMP, to the PMP, to CN Medusa, to most of the products we have. And it can show you the load of the system. So you can monitor if you're really hitting the oversubscription limit, if you're really using all the time in the air, transmits like with the 100% duty time. And it can help you. So CN Maestro, these airtime counters, they can help you to monitor the subscription.
Great, Dimitri. Thanks. That's some actionable advice that I think we can take away from this. I know that there is one question in the chat that I'm going to have answered in the executive Q&A coming up next. So I'd like to thank you, Dimitri. And at the top of the hour, we're going to have our final session, and that's an open Q&A with the Cambium executives. I want to remind you all to fill out the event survey at the end, and please enjoy this short video from Cambium. Remember, the link to the executive Q&A is at the bottom of the presentation, won't auto roll. Look forward to seeing you very soon, about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Wildfires in Oregon stranded an entire community. Cell towers and fiber were destroyed. There were no phones, no internet. Restoration would take months. Volunteers from Oregon Internet Response created a solution for their own community. High school students helped install solar-powered fixed wireless connectivity. Forest Rangers and Fire Command were reconnected. Power company communications were reconnected and electricity was restored. A resort and military depot were transformed into schools with Wi-Fi. In days, the community was reconnected with faster speeds than before. People started rebuilding their lives.